And the last stroke was in 1950 when China's army attacked Tibet and they occupied eastern parts of it. And then Dalai Lama was forced to send a group of people for discussion. And China forced that group to sign what it calls 17-point agreement, which was drafted by China and signed under duress by the Tibetan representatives. And China declared that Tibet has agreed to return to the great motherland in 1951. So this is how the modern size or modern shape of Republic of China came into existence. Yeah, namaskar everybody. Today we are going to discuss the one issue which is quite popular and everybody notices, because whenever China goes angry on any country, the first thing it demands is that every country in the world and every corporate in the world and every newspaper in the world should follow one China policy as China perceives it. So this issue has obviously attracted many people and institutions and governments. And many times people are keen to understand that what exactly is one China. So today we are going to talk about the narrative which China is trying to create and has, to a very good extent, already succeeded in creating that this impression that there is one China, and that China is of the vision of Xi Jinping, the Communist Party of China, and the propaganda media of China. So People's Republic of China, when it talks of China, the idea they have or they present is exactly, I have presented a bold map of China as it is popular today, called People's Republic of China. And it's a huge country. And if we go into the history, our friends will remember that it's the story of Great Wall of China. Initially, this is very interesting that this was the wall which the Chinese took about 2,300 years to construct. Yes, 2,300 years to construct this wall whose length is more than 21,000 meters. And the reason was because the Chinese, the Hans, were attacked very regularly from other countries around, other clans around, and other people, whether it was the Mongols or it was the Tibetans, it was the Uyghurs, it was the Huis, it was so many. They were attacked regularly, and they were so much afraid of it and worried of these attacks that, number one, they created this wall. And the wall was to keep those people off. And all the people who were attackers, in Chinese terminology, they are barbarians. And it's very interesting. In Chinese terminology today, anybody who is not a Han is a barbarian, underlined barbarian, including me and you when they discuss about us. In their terminology, we are barbarians because we are not Hans, we are not Chinese. So anyhow, so they created a wall which defined the boundaries of China. This was the real historic China, which was surrounded by the wall. And before 1912, when the first idea of modern China came, it was Republic of China in 1912 which came. And before that, China itself was a country which was balkanized miserably. And there were many parts which were surrounded, which were occupied by other forces. If I give you another view of that historic map, a schematic map, you will see that China, at that time, they had their neighbors were Mongolia, Tibet, and East Turkestan. And they themselves were neighbors to themselves, because a good part of China was occupied by what was at that time. It was the Russian Manchuria, Japanese Manchuria, German China, British China, French China, and there were two other Chinas which were not even neighbors of China itself. That was the Portuguese and Japanese China. So that one can imagine that before 1912, China was this shape and this size. And it was in 1912 when the Republic of China, the great Chinese leader Sun Yat-sen, he pulled out China from centuries old occupation and slavery and established Republic of China in 1912. So when he established it at that time, its neighbors were Mongolia, Tibet, East Turkestan, Manchuria, Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, and Korea were the neighbors of that day China, which is original China of modern day. And it was in 1919 that the Han Chinese, they occupied southern Mongolia. And it was assimilated into China. And as a result of that, China expanded. And it got new neighbors, two new neighbors. One was Mongolia and other was Russia. And then in 1945, when Japanese were defeated, the Second World War, at that time they vacated Manchuria and China occupied Manchuria. So here was yet another expansion of China as we know it. And as a result of this expansion, China got some more new neighbors. One was, of course, the Soviet Union. Then was Korea. And Japan also became China's neighbor. And then in 1946, China occupied East Turkestan. East Turkestan, we are hearing a lot about the Uyghur Muslims, Kazakh Muslims. It is their country. China occupied it. And as a result, China expanded to far west. And then China had now new neighbor, Soviet Union, and the erstwhile areas of Kazakhstan, which was at that time part of Soviet Union, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, they also became neighbors of China. And Afghanistan became a new neighbor of China. British India became a new neighbor of China as a result of occupation of East Turkestan. And Chinese were so excited, they gave it a new name, Xinjiang, which means new frontier. They say that it belong to China since immemorial times, but very strange, they didn't have a name for it. So that's very interesting. And the last stroke was in 1950 when China's army attacked Tibet and they occupied eastern parts of it. And then Dalai Lama was forced to send a group of people for discussion. And China forced that group to sign what it calls 17-point agreement, which was drafted by China and signed under duress by the Tibetan representatives. And China declared that Tibet has agreed to return to the great motherland in 1951. So this is how the modern size or modern shape of Republic of China came into existence. So as a result of occupying these countries, Manchuria, South Mongolia, Republic of East Turkestan, and Tibet, China took this shape. And today, because as a result of occupying these countries around, China has borders with Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, of course, that time it was India was free, and Pakistan, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, Korea, and Japan. So China became, a neighbor to 13 countries or 14 countries. And as that was the time when just before China occupied Tibet, this is how South Asia looked like. If you see on the top here, the yellow part, that is Tibet. And it was not a small country, it was a huge country. And then the moment China occupied Tibet, then we suddenly discovered that China is on our borders, our India-Tibet borders, which were one of the most peaceful borders on the earth, suddenly became red-hot borders with China. So this 4,000 kilometers suddenly overnight became India-China border. And before that, there were hardly any guarding of these posts. But for throughout these 4,000 kilometer, not over 1 inch of these 4,000 kilometers, there was any Chinese post on the other side. It was always Tibetan posts, and who were mainly dealing with the religious travelers coming on to both sides, and of course business people. And one of my friends, he is Pau Nubiol, who is a Spanish friend and very keen about studying Tibet. So he shared a map with me. He was trying to superimpose Tibet over Europe to see how big it is. So this is image I borrowed from my friend Pau. So thank you, Pau, for this image. And my study about the total area of Tibet, and if we calculate, then my calculation is that the area of Tibet was huge, not a small country. It was equal to France, Germany, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, Denmark, Holland, Austria, Switzerland, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Albania all put together would make one Tibet which China has occupied. So that should tell us the significance or severity of what China has done to its neighbors. And if we go by statistics, the area of People's Republic of China, as it claims today, is 9.6 million square kilometers. In Indian terminology, we will say 96 lakh square kilometers. And the area of Manchuria was about 10 lakh or 1 million square kilometers. South Mongolia was about 1.17 million, which means 11 lakh 77,000 square kilometers. East Turkestan was the largest one, 1.8 plus million square kilometers. And Tibet was second, about 1.29 or 1.3 million square kilometers. And if we sum up all these areas when China occupied these four countries, it comes to total 5.3 million plus square kilometers, which means more than 53 lakh square kilometers is made up. And when you calculate it in terms of percentage, these countries today account for more than 55.2% the geographic area of People's Republic of China. So, which means the rest of it is stolen land. And the demography, China has used demography as a tool of colonialism. Our today's discussion does not focus on those issues. I will focus mainly on what China calls one China. So I'll not go very much in details of those issues. But population of these occupied countries, which is only Tibet, South Mongolia, and East Turkestan. Why I am not including Manchuria is that Manchuria has ceased to exist. When I say Manchuria has ceased to exist, it means the people have ceased to exist. They have been absorbed into Han population through forcible marriages, through sterilization, through conversion, in the sense that they will send a few million Hans, settle them in some areas of Manchuria, and pick up, because it was a very scarcely populated country, they will pick up a few thousand people and throw them somewhere remotely into China. So they will be lost for themselves and for anybody else. So the result is Manchuria is today totally lost. We are not in a position to even count its existence. And if we talk about how many people speak Manchurian, I don't think it will cross 1,000. And more Manchurians today, if they survive in those museums, living museums of China, which it has established for the international tourists to show them the rich culture of 56 nationalities of China, where people live in their own traditional style. And don't be surprised if you go to Kunming or Beijing or other places and find that there are Han people who are dressed up as many of those races and presented as the original people belonging to those identities. So I am keeping only Tibet, South Mongolia, and East Turkestan in these calculations. Their total population when they were occupied was just little more than 2% of total China's population. But their share in resources, natural resources, today is far more than two-thirds of whatever China claims or whatever China industry is running, it's exporting, it's manufacturing. All these things come from these occupied countries. And non-Han population, one thing which we should understand, how China has handled its so-called, they call them minorities, which is a very wrong concept, or they call them ethnicities. No, they are not ethnicities. They are occupied countries. They are people. Tibetans are a people. They are not minority. They are not ethnic people. They were occupied as Tibetan people. The South Mongolians were occupied as South Mongolians, as Mongols. East Turkestan were occupied as Uyghurs and Kazakhs. And but if you go by statistics, China says even their official statistics show that what they claim to be 56 sisters, which mean 56 nationalities in China today, Han are one and 55 are others. Today, the total population of all 55 put together is less than 8%. I repeat, less than 8%. And rest are all Han Chinese. And Xi Jinping is so worried, so angry that how the hell these Tibetans can exist in their original shape or with their language, with their religion, how Uyghurs can survive, how can they have name like Muhammad or Ali. So China has banned even anybody Muslim who they can't name their newborn child as Ali or Muhammad. They can't keep beard. Those are the issues which shows that they are bent upon killing, wiping out, eradicating the identity and culture of these occupied countries. And I call it cultural genocide. China has not only conducted human side or killing of people, they have killed cultures. They are still busy in killing cultures. 2 days ago, there was a report about Xinjiang, what is happening there. And the report is really dangerous and shocking. The way they are trying to destroy the culture and identity. They have already tried it with the 52 nationalities, which are now hardly visible, whether they are Huis or Nashis or etc. And now these 3 nationalities are today left Tibet, South Mongolia, and Turkestan, who Xi Jinping cannot tolerate. And he is bent upon destroying these nationalities, their identity. And the Chinese propaganda is very smart. They are trying to tell the world that what you see China today is actually a continuity of history. China existed thousands of years ago. And what you are seeing today is the continuity of it. There can't be a more bigger historical fraud than this narrative which China is spreading today. If you go into their history, which is Chinese history, I know I have a friend, Michael van Walt, a very prominent international lawyer. He and his one other colleague, they have worked 10 years to do research on the history of China and Tibet. Just to go into every minute details, they have gone beyond the Chinese narrative. They have gone to histories written by other countries and even those victim countries. And then they have come out with a very interesting book, Tibet 2020. I'm sure I have borrowed this graph from that book, Tibet Brief 2020 by Michael van Walt van Praag and Mick Bolshes. So this shows that there were 4 eras, the Song dynasty, Yuan dynasty, Ming dynasty, and Qing dynasty. But for any When they say it is seamless succession, I think it is one of the most shameless frauds in the world history, because it's not succession, it is occupation. Practically speaking, when you go, there were only three major empires in last, right from year 1206 to today, to up to 1912 when China became Republic of China. One was Mongol Empire, Ming Empire, Manchu Empire. Out of these four, the Songs and Ming, they were Chinese. The Mongols were Mongols. They were Yuan dynasty. The Manchus were Manchus. They were Qing dynasty. They were not Hans. They were not Chinese. So if you go into these details, go to the timeline, you will realize what China is talking of a continuity is a fraud. And the real China, which was governed by these two Song and Ming dynasties, they ruled China. If you in this map, this is the black spot. This is the China which existed in history, which these two dynasties ruled. They were in possession of this land, but they were conquered by Mongols and Manchus over most of the history. I'll give you a very simple breakup of how it happened. And you will see that Mongol Empire and Manchu Empire, when they were occupying China, at the same time, Song dynasty and Ming dynasty were their vassals. And if I say in simple statistics, the last independent rule in China of Chinese was Song in 690 to 1206. And the Ming dynasty remained throughout under Mongols and Manchus for 784 years. The Mongol, who are also called Yuan, the Mongol rule or Yuan rule, it lasted for 488 years in the whole in that region, which included China plus others. I'll show you the map. If you see the left map down, that was the Mongol Empire. If you see the middle one, that was the Manchu Empire. And on extreme right, you will see the black spot was China, which was again a vassal of these two. Whenever these two dynasties or empires existed, they were subordinate to it. And the Manchus, they ruled for 296 years. And if we want to tell Beijing or Xi Jinping the mirror, he should know that for last 268 years in China, before 1912, there was no Chinese rule. No Chinese rule. They were governed by Manchus, who were foreigners. And when the Republic of China was found in 1912, it was then that China came into existence. I'll show you these maps a little larger. This is the Mongol Empire, which spread itself, far beyond. And you can see down the map, for comparison, I have shown you this black spot. That was here on the right side of Tibet. That was a part of Mongol Empire. And then Manchu Empire again. It was again a huge empire, but not that big as Mongol Empire. And again, these Hans, the Chinese, were a part of it. They were subordinate to it. And to the extent that if you read history, Kublai Khan, when was ruling China, he took to killing the Hans in a very unique way. At many points, he identified cliffs, very high cliffs, and he will take the Chinese there in queue, and just they will be thrown down one after other so that they don't have to spend money to kill them. So Chinese kings were so terrified. They went to whom? They went to Dalai Lama, to Tibet, because Dalai Lama was the guru of the Mongols. The title Dalai Lama was given by the Mongol. It's a Mongolian word. So they went to Dalai Lama and prayed to him, please save us from these Manchus, these Mongols. And and Dalai Lama did that, helped them and saved the Hans from what the the Mongols were doing to them, and what now the Hans are doing to other races, to the Mongols themselves. So this was 1912 China as it became Republic of China, and this is how China came right up to the border of India, and they are still using Tibet as a launch pad. I for a very quick reference so that our audience can understand the significance of occupation of Tibet and China's expansion, what it is meaning. So, example of India should be enough. So, if you see on Ladakh, the western side of Ladakh is Xinjiang, on top north, and the eastern side is Tibet. So that all is occupied by China, and that is how China is creating problem. When they say that this area of Ladakh belongs to China, or when they say Arunachal Pradesh area belongs to China, actually they mean that it belongs to Tibet. So I am always wondering why the New Delhi government doesn't have the wisdom, courage, and knowledge to tell China that sorry, we don't want to deal with you because you are standing at an occupied country and using the occupation of Tibet to lay claims on Indian area, so you have no business to be there. I think New Delhi government will have to say one day. Otherwise, China will remain on India's head and India will have to be aggressive. Now, coming to this one China policy, the whole issue became a political issue, controversy across the world in 1949 when Mao Zedong's communist revolution, which was a bloody revolution, which killed more than 30 million Chinese, and he occupied power. So at that time, Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalist, the president of China, he ran away. He had to escape, and he went to Taiwan, Formosa, and established a fresh government. And he claimed that that was real China government. The Americans and other Western powers, they recognized him as the real China. So you will see that in United Nations, Republic of China was represented from right from beginning 1945 to 1971 as the real China. And they did not recognize People's Republic of China because it was a communist power, and the Western democracy didn't want to give it any respect or any recognition. So People's Republic of China was kept out of United Nations. And as a result, China was always crying that there is only one China. So their dispute was that Chiang Kai-shek's Taiwan is not China and we are only one China. That is how one China came into existence, the issue. And unfortunately for the world, America was ruled by two very brilliant idiots. I would sorry to use this term, but when, with all due respect, when you say due respect means nothing more than due also. So Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, they were the smartest pair in American history, and they proved to be the most foolish pair because they had imaginary fears of USSR. So they wanted to promote China. They went and kowtowed before Mao Zedong because they were hoping that they will use China to subjugate or to keep USSR under their thumb. And in the process, they kowtowed to China. And now what the result is, you know very well. Everybody knows what has happened over the years. China got the respect which it did not deserve. It replaced Taiwan as real China. In United Nations, got even a veto power. And today it is occupying every institution of United Nations through money power and through controlling votes of those countries whom they have given loans. And whether it is WHO or IOC, nothing can function. I got a very interesting painting. It was gifted from a friend from Australia. many years ago, I think more than 12 years ago. And today I took it out and scanned it, and here it is for you, which is showing how the courtiers in Chinese darbars, how they would kowtow to the king. And when China joined hands with, when America joined hands with China, it was a Chinese painter who came out with this idea that now the new courtiers are Nixon and Henry Kissinger, etc. And this painting, as you see the close up, new emperor is Mao, and new courtiers are Nixon and Kissinger. And since then, China is bullying Taiwan, which had every right to exist as a country, even if it is not, you don't accept it as a real China, at least they are a country. So every day you see the threats against Taiwan, which is expression of one China policy. And Taiwan is very lucky to have this new president who can stand up to Xi Jinping. And let us hope they can stand up to it. So this new one China policy, ultimately because China became very powerful, on their own, they extended it, which was meant only for their fight with the Republic of China. They extended it to those colonies which they had occupied, Tibet, Xinjiang, and Inner Mongolia. So they now say that they are integral parts of China. So everything in these colonies is internal matter of China. And China claims that they have every right to treat the peoples of these colonies the way they want, and the world has no right to object to it. And it's very strange that governments, right from America to Germany to France to Britain, India, all of them, they have accepted this Chinese definition of one China policy to be extended to colonialism also. This is very, in my opinion, this is not only wrong, it is shameful on the part of democratic world. And China, the way it is extending its one China policy to its colonies, what is it happening? They are, they today come out openly and they say they have legitimate right to exploit all the resources of these occupied countries. They say they have every right to apply because they have claims over Arunachal Pradesh. So they would say that they have a right to apply their laws, that a sportsman of Arunachal Pradesh or any person who wants to travel to China will be given a Chinese passport and visa. Only then they can enter. So this is what China is today trying to apply its laws even in those areas where it has claims. And now it says that even their land disputes, territorial disputes belong to China. And it's very unfortunate the word is accepting, because the reason is China has become rich. And become rich how? Because America and Europe, their corporates wanted to make big money. They found China they have cheap labor, so let us give them technology. They gave them technology. They said, okay, let us give them now investment. And now they need machinery, so they gave them machinery also. And they closed their own factories in Spain, in America, in Germany, in Switzerland. You go anywhere, you will find factories which were closed and went to China. So this is how China became rich. And suddenly, because China doesn't believe in value, it believes in price. So there is a price on everything. There is a price on even the vote in United Nations for any country. So the world governments and corporates, they are tolerating China because it's convenient, because it is profitable. And when it comes to Tibet or Xinjiang or South Mongolia, at the best they say it's a human right issue, and because human right issue is it's a charity, so we are free not to do charity, to do or not to do charity. So this, in my opinion, is collusion with a criminal country by all these countries, by the governments of these countries. So if they do business with China, if they import things from China, They are actually financing China to kill those people who their own population and occupied people. So now what the world can do, in my opinion, I'm now reaching the conclusion that Tibet, East Turkestan, South Mongolia, the world should start talking that they are occupied countries. They are not part of China. They are not integral part of China. And whatever happens there is not internal matter of China. And these are countries. They are not minorities or ethnic groups. They are countries who are occupied. The world should recognize it. And because China has already imposed its final solution on Manchuria as we know it, and Manchuria has already disappeared, I think it's a moral responsibility of the civilized world. If we claim that we are a civilized world, we should not let it happen to Tibet or East Turkestan or South Mongolia. That is the minimum we can do. And we have to act before it is too late, because once China has already using resources of these occupied countries, becoming rich and fighting, on border with more than 13 countries. So it can bully more countries. It can barge into Soviet Union. It has started redefining human rights. And yesterday they redefined democracy, and they made fun of American president. They say that that is not democracy. But we have People's Republic of China. People is people. Republic is again people. People's China. So because we have people and people and people, so we are democracy. This is such a shameless thing, and the whole world is tolerating it. Times of India, Indian Express, Hindustan Times, Hindu, they are publishing Chinese statement bigger than the American president. I'm not saying American president is more important, but everybody is kowtowing. Our media, our thinkers, our politicians, our decision makers, our opinion makers, our so-called civil society, which many times behaves civil only when it is convenient. Otherwise, they are with the uncivilized people. I think this is time we should wake up before it is too late. Thank you very much.
I would like to just continue with the last point that you made, that the entire world is kowtowing. I heard somebody put it the very right way, like they were talking about how the entire Islamic world they don't even talk about Uyghur Muslims.
Yes.
They have chosen Chinese goods over Muslim people, over China's people.
Yes, Aparnaji, I think this is a very pertinent, very right question, which is a very shocking issue, which has put every thinking Muslim in the world, whether that Muslim belongs to a feudal, totally Islamic state or free countries like India. It has put two right thinking Muslims into shame. That on the one hand, the Muslim leaders, the Muslim majority countries, Islamic nations, they will be angry on any petty thing which they think is anti-Islam, and they will use any language, any means, including killing and murders and terrorism, to teach lesson to those people who are against Islam. And those right-thinking Muslims, I know many friends, they are ashamed. They are shocked to see that these Muslim nations, these presidents of countries like Pakistan, Turkey, Indonesia, and the Middle East, they have not spoken one word against what China is doing to the Muslim population of Uyghurs and Kazakhs in Xinjiang. And that, in my opinion, that exposes the hollowness of these Muslim leaders who claim that they understand or they represent Islam. It only shows they care for money and benefits which come out of supporting terrorism, out of supporting wrong kind of people and wrong kind of organizations against democratic countries like India. I don't think one Muslim leader has the face or can face Uyghur Muslims. the Chinese say that they are re-educating, retraining, vocational training centers. I have a friend whom I met just last month in Geneva in a conference, and he was saying his mother is 84 years old and she is in jail. You have vocational training centers for 84 years old women, 4 years old children. You have vocational centers. So, and leave aside if a mosque is converted into a public urinal, if they remove the Islamic flag on the top of a mosque, or if they arrest somebody for just keeping beard, they ban a man to name his child as Ali or Muhammad. What would have these civil society people in India or in other countries, what would they have done? Taslima Nasreen writes a book and they have a fatwa to chop off her head. And none of them, these people, have the courage. My Uyghur Muslim friend, he was telling me that the case of Uyghurs has tested the genuineness of Islamic leadership, the genuineness of Islamic governments. So he was right. His assessment is that these are all criminals because they are siding with, they are supporting China. They are not speaking one word against it, only because either they need money or they need arms. So this is a serious issue. And I think it's less of concern for people like me who are not Muslims or you. It should be a matter of concern for Muslims, those who love Islam, those who understand Islam, those who have deep faith in Islam. These are the people, they should stand up and challenge these governments, Islamic governments across the world, Islamic leaders across the world, and ask them to behave.
There's so much to speak about this, like the blasphemy, the Sri Lankan who was killed last week, and all these hadiths and Sharia exists only for those who they deem as less powerful than them. Otherwise, Islamists are like spineless in all of the Islamic nations.
My question is actually also I have an observation about what you were talking about, how the Han Chinese, because everyone has to be Han, and what they did with the Manchuria. I remember reading a couple of months ago that they are apparently doing that with the Uyghur Muslims as well. They are sort of making sure that they're getting the Uyghur women into forced marriages. They want to totally depopulate them of being Uyghur. So they want to just make it Han. So that is also happening and no one is doing anything. My question is actually naturally related to India. You have seen so much in the last how many years, and we know how terrible our policy has been with regard to China, right from the start with Nehru's pro-China tilt. We lost so much time. Now, finally, all of us are happy that at least since 2014, we have a government which we feel okay, will keep us safe, will be strong with China, and we have been. What, in your opinion, do you feel that this government is actually doing what needs to be done to make sure that we don't face any aggression from China and that we can manage China and keep safe?
Deepanjali, your question is very valid and your observations, I agree. Your first observation about what China is doing to Muslims in Xinjiang. First, I will handle that. Your observation, I'll add to that point. Chinese, as I said, they are not still happy. Xi Jinping is still annoyed with seeing a Tibetan name or a Muslim face of an Uyghur or a Mongol standing with self-respect. They want them to, total surrender. They surrender their identity. If they don't surrender, it will be, it will be finished. They have banned, already they have done these things in Tibet, because I'm following Tibet for last almost 50 years as a journalist. In Tibet, they did all these things which they are doing with the Xinjiang people. Forced marriages with the Tibetan women, their rapes in the jail, sterilization, forced sterilization has been very common. Just imagine, in the whole of Tibet, there were 6 million Tibetans only. In a sea of Han people, they are just nothing. But what they did, they have brought in millions of Han Chinese from the mainland into, and they have created new cities, parallel cities. I have traveled inside. Lhasa has a parallel city which is larger than the original Lhasa town. Only give you one example. The population of Lhasa has never been more than 1 lakh, only in those peak periods when there was a national Monlam festival. Otherwise, the population was hardly 40,000. And the total number of cars registered in Lhasa crossed 1 lakh in 2002. So and Tibetans are the last people who will own a car in Tibet. So you can imagine. There are in Lithang, there is a parallel city. In Darsedo, there is a parallel city. In Karze, there is a parallel city. In Chilin, you will have to wait to see first Tibetan face. When 500 people have crossed, maybe you will see one Tibetan face. So this is what they have done. In Lhasa, I had a chief of RAW who visited as a guest of China, and great journalist N. Ram, who many times, unfortunately, behaves like a Chinese travel guide who takes Indian journalists for tours of China, which are sponsored tours. So he had taken him and another think tank head. And one of them, actually both of them separately on phone, told me, Vijay, what the hell Dalai Lama is talking? Everybody is happy in Tibet. They have cars, they have beautiful malls, they have beautiful roads. So I had to ask them only one question. Mr. I won't name him, the raw chief, he retired. Can you distinguish between a Tibetan face and a Chinese face? Don't answer me this question, but now you tell me, say again, that the people you saw in cars were happy Tibetans, or in malls, they were happy Tibetans. And he had the magnanimity to say, sorry, Vijay, I think I should, let me rethink this issue. So they have done it. They have changed the demography of Tibet, of Xinjiang, East Turkestan, of South Mongolia. They have dumped millions and millions of Hans there, in addition to their army. So they have practically done it. Their local language is banned. In Tibet, people used to teach their children, send them in local schools. They banned all the schools where they teach Tibetan or which are private. So government schools. And there is a total ban on education in Tibetan language. And actually, the people who teach as volunteers in a weekend school at home are arrested, that you are anti-national. So these things, they are doing it in Xinjiang, and they are doing it with their women, unfortunately. The Islamists are very sensitive about the honor of their women. Whatever they do to their women is different. But no non-Muslim should do anything bad to a Muslim woman. They do it. In Kerala, they do it. In UP, they do it. They do it in America. They do it everywhere. In London, they do it. But they have no courage to challenge China when it is doing blatantly. So that is one issue. Coming to the Indian government, present Indian government, there is no doubt there is a qualitative shift. Because in 1992, I was a reporter with India Today. The border trade was opening after 30 years between Tibet and India. They called India-China border. My editor sent me, Vijay, you have interest in Tibet. Why don't you go there? I went there. From Dharchula, when I walked from Thanidar to the border, and in Delhi, they told me you will have to walk 1 day, so no other reporter wants to go. So can you? I said, why not? I'll go. I had to walk 8 days to reach my border. On the way, our army people with their mules and carrying, luggage on their own head, they were walking with me. I asked them, sir, why don't we don't have a road here? So bole, sir, afsar logo se pucho. Go and ask our officers. So in Dharchula, there is an establishment. They invited me for dinner. Very nice people, those army officers, and for exchange of views. I asked them. They said, "Sir, the government policy is we will not construct roads in border because if we do it, Chinese army will use those roads and walk into India." So for the first 60 years, Indian government did not construct one road. The only road was in Nathula, Sikkim, which became part of India much later. And India never did it. So it is now Modi who understood the significance because he listened to the army officers and they briefed him the reality. And now at 76 points, he has already started and finished road construction. The last Indian posts are now connected in most places with road. That is why Indian army could send replenishment very quickly in Galwan. On the first attack, they killed about 20 army men. But when there was retaliation, one figure is our people, because they were able to use road and reach there quickly and come with reinforcement, they killed 42 Chinese. And China has yet to accept it. So my answer is that it is good the Modi government understands it, has understood it. They have started. But China has a huge head start. So we will take many years, but I think still there is beginning and it should be welcome. But still I believe Modi government has to be a little more brave. No doubt he is doing everything without making noise. But he should understand that making noise is very important many times. And you know that the story of that snake who was told by a saint that you should not bite poor people, villagers, be peaceful. And he did it. And next time when he visited, the snake was in a bad shape. Sir, these little kids are beating me, stoning me. He said, I asked you not to bite them. I didn't ask you to stop hissing. So to protect yourself, you should hiss. Every government must hiss. Indian government is not hissing. They are not telling China, you don't have to recognize Dalai Lama's government right today. But you can tell China, you cannot have any border dispute with India on the basis of illegally occupying Tibet. If there is any dispute, it is between Tibet and India, not China and India. So India should refuse to talk. India should tell China, sorry, you are illegal occupant. Namaste. We don't want to deal with you. Otherwise, you had 14 talks. You got nothing, only lost what you had gained. What you call Kailash Heights. Don't talk to them. If you talk, you will always lose. But speak. Anyhow, but I think Indian government is on right way. And I personally feel that India is now in safe hands when it comes to dealing with a communist dictatorial regime like China. Only a man like Modi is suitable. Those other lollipops are of no use. So I think we should feel happy that we have right government at right time.
Sir, I have another point to make. One, it was long ago that China planted their own Panchen Lama, and now they have banned reincarnation by lamas. They can reincarnate only by government approval. What do you say about this insanity? I mean, it is disgusting, but it is completely insane.
Yes, this is very interesting. I'll say it in very short because Tibet is not our issue today. But because I have studied Tibet, right from 1951, when China occupied Tibet, Mao has been saying religion is poison, religion is opium for masses. So when he may force Dalai Lama to run away from Tibet, then the Chinese regime, Mao, they used next 40 years to crush Tibetan religion in every possible way. They destroyed their monasteries. They banned all the schools, religious schools. They disrobed and humiliated, arrested senior monks, killed thousands of them, because they thought that a Tibetan minus religion is equal to a patriot Chinese. So knock out religion from the head and heart of Tibetans, and you will get patriotic Chinese. They did it best. And then they realized it was not working. In 1989-88, when there were demonstrations against China, the leadership was shocked to see that this whole demonstration was conducted by young Tibetans who were the second or third generation, who had never seen, their parents had never seen Dalai Lama. And still they wanted Dalai Lama to come back. They wanted freedom for Tibet. So then they realized that you can't knock down religion. So then they adopted a new policy: run with the hare if you want to catch it. Don't follow it. So run with it and catch it. So they have now the policy of occupying Tibetan religion from inside. So that is why they had appointed committees of lamas headed by Communist Party officers to find out the reincarnation of Karmapa and Panchen Lama. Very funny. A communist leader is finding the reincarnation. Then my suggestion is, why don't you go and find out the reincarnation of Mao Zedong, of Deng Xiaoping? You will be richer. They were wonderful leaders from your party. So they want to occupy it. They had used most abusive language for a man like Dalai Lama. They called him a wolf in the robes of monk, the head of bandits, etc. All the dirty names they could use for him. And now they say that the next reincarnation of Dalai Lama we will appoint. On the one hand, you are being abusive. You are trying to kill this man, and then you want his reincarnation in your pocket. That shows there is something wrong. So it only exposes the designs of Communist Party. It exposes the communist mind, the violence of communist mind, the irrationality of communist thinking, which is expressing itself through the language of Xi Jinping, his policies, and that the Communist Party of China. So to me, it's all laughable thing.
Why the East Turkestan name? What is the ethnicity? Are they Tatars? Are they Uzbek, Kazakh, Turkmen, Kyrgyz? What is the ethnicity of the East Turkestan? They were a republic from 51 to 55, and they had their own flag and all that. Next stage,
correct. From 51 to 46, they were republic. Yes.
Achha, okay. No, then they were taken over. Then again, they become a republic. I'm not sure.
In 46, they were taken over.
Okay. No, but earlier, about 3 years back, I Googled and it said 51 to 55, they were republic.
No, 55, anyway. There was no East Turkestan. It was already occupied.
Why was India the first to recognize Chinese sovereignty, not suzerainty, sovereignty over Tibet, the first nation in the world, when actually we should have been the last? Was there any?
We did not accept their sovereignty, but we agreed in the 1954 so-called Panchshil agreement that Tibet is part of China. We agreed on that. And there were many other things which we agreed, and which was no business we had to agree, but we were ready to surrender. So we did it. About Xinjiang, because that is close to our today's subject, Xinjiang the original name is Republic of East Turkestan. And that region is ethnically influenced under what you call the extension of the Turkic culture. But in Xinjiang, there are mainly two kind of races living, the Uyghurs and the Kazakhs. So the Uyghurs are a large majority and Kazakhs are a small number. And so they are basically they are Muslims, because the conversion, as it happened in Afghanistan, etc., it happened in that era. So these are the ethnicities. As far as in Shaksgam, I think it's a very different issue. We lost so many areas because we were sleeping. Our Prime Minister, one is that he did not know that it belonged to India. When he came to know it belonged to India, and he was told by the secretary of MEA that, sir, Chinese have made a 1200-kilometer road there. So he was angry. Oh, send a letter to Chu Enlai right now and tell them we will not tolerate it. And after that, he calls him again. Leave that letter. No need to send. I'll talk to him. And he never spoke to him. So, our leaders did not have, number one, they were not bothered about knowing their own country. They could write books on history of India, but they did not understand history of India. They did not even know the geography of India. We are talking of Pandit Nehru. Unfortunately, he is dead. And, he knew everything except those things he should have known about country. So Aksai Chin was occupied. Shaksgam was handed over to China. He did not know it. And when he came to know, he did not take any step. I'll give you only one example. In Nathula, when China was making road, or before that, China had no road in Tibet. In 1951, when Chinese army walked in, they had to take the help of Tibetans to make roads, temporary roads. Dalai Lama ran away from Lhasa, came very close to Indian border, and the Chinese Mao sent his general to meet Dalai Lama. There was no road. He went via India to meet Dalai Lama. And today the result situation, India doesn't have roads. China has all along 4,000 kilometers a highway from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. And there every post, the officers come in Pajeros. And our people, they carry their luggage on their head. Leave that story. So we are a nation, we didn't understand. When China was making road to connect Nathula, which was Sikkim at that time, India was selling rice to the Chinese army, who were making road to connect with India. So this is the wisdom our leaders, our policy makers have had. So, I hope there is something to be proud of them. So I think today's the scope of today's discussion, I can't go very far from this subject. Any more question, please?
First is, with China controlling most of the global, supply chain, some say it is close to 90%. Do you think Indian government is in a position to actually take Tibet issue with China or maybe to UN globally? I can see civilians doing it, like we are discussing. I can see media actually making it a real issue. But do you think government can actually do it at this point in time, especially when we are not on our feet completely? So your views on that, that's number one. And number two, as we can see that China is somehow expected to be the next hegemonic power. So they probably are on the way to remove US from that throne. If that is so, then why is China not looking at India as an alliance, as a peaceful neighbor? Because to me, as a layman, it does not look very strategic or very calculative that you have opened multiple fronts. You have to tackle West, and you're also fighting with India, which is supposed to be the most peaceful neighbor. So do you think this is actually a strategy, or do you think CCP is actually trying to pacify their own people? So your views on that?
It is one of the most intelligent questions I have faced over the last many, many months. Thank you very much. Yes, you are right. First, I will answer the second question. Is that why China should not have thought of, having an alliance with India, making a friend rather than making enemy? The tragedy is Raman would never think like that. Raman could have stayed, he had a richer capital and a country than Ramchandraji had in Ayodhya, because his Lanka was made of gold. And he had, command over everything, including Lord Shiva and so many. And he had all kind of armory and, what you call resources like the Danavas under his command. And still he committed one foolishness of stealing Sitaji. This is the destiny of Raman. Xi Jinping is today's Ravan. China is today's Ravan. He will look powerful till the last moment, till he is not dead. He will be, everybody will be terrified of him till people don't see him lying down dead. So this is the destiny of Ravans. And Xi Jinping and Communist Party of China are the Ravans of present day world. If they had the wisdom, they would have simply focused on making Tibetans happy. How many Tibetans are there? 6 million Tibetans. You could have given them a wonderful house, asked them to go to temple, everybody goes there, will give you food. And don't make noise. But they would, kill their monks, they would destroy their monasteries, and don't gain anything out of it, except the demonic glee, the demonic satisfaction. So let us not expect China to think of having that kind of relation with countries like India. And I don't think it is too late for India to now join hands with China, because now joining hands will means to give them an open invitation to come into your house and blast you from within. So there is no scope for it, and there is no wisdom I can see in the Communist Party of China or its leaders. Actually, Marxism doesn't have that wisdom. Doesn't have. Marxism lacks that basic wisdom. They have some of the most beautiful ideas of public welfare, but they have the worst means of achieving it. You make a person happy by killing him, or killing his father, because his father is a bourgeois. So don't expect this from China. Your first question was about, you said because today China is powerful, so Indian government can't do anything. When China was not powerful, Indian government didn't do anything. So how can you expect this wisdom from that bunch of people? I sorry use this word. Our policy, our leadership has certain basic problems. They become happy very quickly. They become angry very quickly. They can do great things, over just, when they are angry or when they are excited, but they can't think continuously. So this is what has happened over the last 60 years, and we have lost. We did not even, when I was talking, we didn't make roads. We knew China is growing. We knew China is inviting, is getting industry from the West. And we never opened ourselves. I used to go travel about 3-4 kilometers to get one bottle of milk. I used to cycle from my home, because our younger sister was born. She was 14 years younger to me. Because India did not have, or India had not decided to produce milk, which should be sufficient. We didn't do. I remember, to get one bottle of milk license. We campaigned with the member of parliament, who wrote a letter, please, they have a young baby in their home, please issue one token, one, half-liter bottle. Yes, it's so shocking. This has happened in India. We have lived like that 60 years. Dalda ka dibba lene ke liye, people had to, stand for one full day at Super Bazaar in Delhi, New Delhi, Connaught Place, just to get razor blade, shaving blade. You will have to go in bus, because that was the only place you will get Super Bazaar shaving blade, because the government will not issue licenses to the industry. And industry was exploited so badly by officers, and they will not go for production. It was not. So we have lost opportunities, and now we should, rather than repenting, we should repair it. And now India has started doing it. Let us be happy. You are living in a generation. You are lucky generation. So I think there is a beginning, and we should be satisfied about it. Let us hope democracy survives in this country. There are many forces who want to destroy this democracy, and they would do anything to do that. But I know young people like you are there, our soldiers. You will protect it.
I have a question. Is one China policy same as one China principle? Etymologically, are they same or two different things?
One China policy, basically, China says that they don't mean that there is only one China. Original issue was that Republic of China was established when Mao Zedong occupied the power. Communist Party came into power. The nationalist government of Chiang Kai-shek, they had to run for their life. So with some resources, he ran away from there, went across the strait, and next door, he established Republic of China. America was helping them because he was anti-communist. So they could establish themselves. And because Republic of China was recognized as real China in United Nations and all other forums, so People's Republic of China was very angry. Then America shifted, they went in honeymoon with the other China. And suddenly, People's Republic of China, the communist China, became the real China. So that issue was settled at that time. Only thing was that Taiwan should become a part of China, which Taiwanese don't want. So Chinese, if they had the wisdom, they would have said, okay, you live happily. You have a small place to live, you live there. And they could have lived themselves also happily, but they don't want. But now what the problem is, China wants the whole world to accept all their sins of occupying countries like Tibet, East Turkestan, South Mongolia, Manchuria, Hong Kong, Macau. And they want the whole world to not raise any issue. It's our internal matter. If you raise any issue, it means you are interfering, you are challenging one China policy. This is their interpretation. One China means it's Communist Party's China and nobody should interfere. If they are killing their people, you have no business. If they are killing Tibetans have no business to raise question because they are subjects. And the rest of the world also has no authority, or they would challenge anybody raises issue. कि तुम अपनी बीवी को पीट रहे हो, अच्छी बात नहीं है. They would say, तुम्हें क्या है? It's our don't touch our unity of our family. So this is like that. This is what China is doing.
And how much is the wolf warrior approach helping China in peddling this agenda? The aggressive diplomatic strategy which they use right now.
No, that I think the conditions are in favor of China right now. Because number one, America never focused on, they were leaders. They never focused on keeping their friends happy. Every other day their Washington Post, their New York Times, their so-called civic society, they will raise issues. India is your friend, and you start criticizing the Indian government, putting them to shame every day, and then you expect that they will wag their tail. So America never made good friends across even those countries where it had friends. So America failed. China was focused on buying friendship. So China has given tons of loans to so many. They identified poor countries, gave them loans who were incapable of paying back. They identified them. They gave them billions of dollars and constructed ports there. They constructed railway lines and other things. And when they knew that they can't pay, they occupied those things. So this is exactly what is happening with Sri Lanka. You need a passport. I repeat, you need a passport to enter some parts of Colombo, Chinese passport. Because Hambantota is now property of China. In Gwadar, ordinary Pakistani can't enter that area. They are shot because that belongs to China. In Djibouti, this is happening, same thing. In recently one country, they occupied that airport. Idi Amin's country. What was the name? They have Entebbe airport, Uganda. China financed it. And then they found Uganda can't pay for it. So they have occupied. Now it belongs to, their national airport belongs to China. So what China has done, they identified leaders who are corrupt, like the Pakistani Prime Minister, Pakistani army, and they bribed them up to their neck. And only thing they have to do whenever there is an issue in United Nations, they will vote for China. You know, there were more votes against probe into Wuhan virus in various agencies. You know, the WHO got letters from governments, you know, more than three dozen governments. There is no need to probe it. So they say, okay, we don't probe it. So China has bought majority votes in most of the UN agencies and offices. They have installed, you know, in the bureaucracy of these agencies, you will find more than 1/4 are Chinese already. So if you send a letter there, it will reach somewhere only if it is suitable to China. So this is what is happening, and the whole world has been lethargic and indifferent to it, and China has been focused. So they are occupying it.
One last question is that, you know, China proudly carries this figure of being a civilization state. They say that, you know, we have a history of 5,000-year-old, you know, we are a 5,000-year-old country, and we have continuous history which India lacks. So it was really surprising for me when you showed like what China looked like in the ancient times. So somewhere we see that scholars in universities also, they are accepting this idea of civilization state, or China rather being a civilization state. So is it a time to discard it now?
No, you know, I'm afraid it is already very late. I'm not saying it is too late. I have forgotten the number of Confucius centers across the world China has established in universities, etc. And what they do is, right now in America or in many countries, the universities are run by boards which run on commercial lines, and they need money. So what China is doing throughout, they identified such influential universities and they started donating money to those boards. And in process, they started buying, either the board members will become their agents or the nominees of Chinese government from within that society will become board members. And that is why you will be surprised when Dalai Lama wanted to speak in some universities in America. The local boards, they refused to welcome the Dalai Lama. And that we should not make China unhappy, because China has bought influence. And these Confucius centers is one of the worst Trojan horses of modern day. Because in India, we have, I think, 4 institutes. Their only job is to identify pro-China people. They have identify anti-government people. You know, anti-government means anti-national people. To identify anti-ruling party people and finance them, support them. They are doing it in every country. It's not only in India. We don't have quislings only in India. You know, our Cobalt Gandhis become Akalmand only in the late stage of their lives. Otherwise, the whole life they are working for China, for the Naxalites, and to sabotage the national system. So they get wisdom only in the last days. So this is a tragedy in India. And because we are a free society, the enemy has all the freedom to manipulate our institutions. And they have succeeded. Our leader like Rahul Gandhi, when the whole nation is unhappy with China, he and his family goes for a dinner at the Chinese embassy. You know, that wisdom is also missing in our leadership. So it's not that he's anti-national. He's not anti-national. Rahul Gandhi is not anti-national. He lacks wisdom. But in practical, that lands at same place. So we are unfortunate. Our political leadership lacks wisdom very badly. They lack in democratic integrity. One family, every member except the dogs are ministers in a state government. You know it. It happened. Only their dogs were not ministers. But everybody, Chachaji, Bhatija, Mosi, Mama, Uncle, they were all ministers somewhere with red siren cars. So that is unfortunate.